Back in 2006, the company Midway made a game called Blitz the League, a football game that was made by the people who did Mortal Kombat, and you can infer what that means. This idea was pretty successful as it spawned 2 sequels, Blitz the League 2 and Blitz the League 3, the subject for today's essay. And that's the thing, most people know Blitz the League 2, and most people have never heard of Blitz the League 3, referred to as Blitz 3 going forward. Which is a shame, because this game is so special. Unlike the previous installments, Blitz 3's campaign is a very serious story about an aging quarterback's desperate attempt to win the Super Bowl, or the championship, as the game calls it, because this is his last season. Of course, this game evolves on a lot of what was present in Blitz the League 2, and we'll talk about that when we get there. For now, though, we're going to talk about the story, the gameplay, why this game deserves more recognition than it gets, and why we need a sequel. Gear up, because we've got a lot of football games to get through on our way to win the Super Bowl. The game starts with a lot of character customization, which means you need to do what you've done in every Blitz game and pick your team's location, name, and logo. I did what had to be done, because when you boot up the team creator, the default city is the first one alphabetically, which means I was shown Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I knew exactly what team I had to make. And now, introducing the Albuquerque Dealers! Bow, 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 bow. The logo is a mobster in various shades of baby blue, because you know the exact joke I'm about to make in the character creation. After finalizing my team information and selecting a stadium, which doesn't really matter for the record, it was on the brand new character customization system. Unlike the previous entries, Blitz 3 allows you to create your main character in that true Xbox 360 PS3 game fashion, which is to say that it's ugly and simple as shit, but gets the job done. Now this is where the fun begins, and was part of the whole reason I chose the team I did. Now presenting the star quarterback of the Albuquerque Dealers, number 52, Walter Heisenberg. Oh, Walter. He's a hero. Now, with our team and main character established, let's get into the story of this football game. The game starts with a montage of your character at various points in his career. Him as a child playing football, at various school ages playing football, some college ball showing him as an all-star in the making, him getting accepted into the league out of college, his first game in the league, and then we cut back to now. He's a lot older, and we're in the team owner's office. He tells us that while we've been the face of the franchise these past 13 years, it's time for you to retire and get off the field. Walter tells him that he's got one more season left in him and he's going to make one last run at the league championship, promising the owner that this is the year the Dealers finally take it home. He laughs and says we won't stand a chance at winning the championship, but he'll humor us because the Dealers taking the championship would bring in a lot of money from the commissioner and revive sponsor interest in the team. But he only accepts this on the condition that we don't get a season-ending injury at any point. We'll do what we must because Walter Heisenberg is taking this shit all the way home. Now, I do have to talk about the gameplay here, even though I want to go more in-depth later on. The core of the game can be broken into 2 segments, team management and football. The team management part of the game is a lot of things that all impact various things in the gameplay. Player training, equipment, and more interestingly, drugs. There's all kinds of drugs you can take in this football game, from your over-the-counter painkillers to the ultra-illegal performance-enhancing stuff. This, however, comes with its own set of benefits and drawbacks. Like, do the benefits of the juice outweigh the risk of what happens when you get caught? None of this is important for the sake of the story, but I do need to mention it so you have some idea of what's going on here behind the scenes. Then there's the gameplay, broken up into offense and defense, and I'm gonna be so honest and say that I have no clue what I'm doing at any given moment in this game, and it's kind of a miracle that I got through this campaign at all. But that's all you need to know for now, because I'm saving the most special mechanic in the football section for later on. The core of the story gameplay-wise is us going through 3 divisions, just like both other games in the series, with 11 games in each division before the division championship. And you need to win about 7 of those games in order to make it to said championship. Now, with all of that shit out of the way, we can get into the real meat of the story. Our first game is up against the Milwaukee Bartenders, and they've got one hell of a wide receiver, I tell you what. Not that I could tell you his name or anything like that, but he's got some real sticky hands, and he's quite the rat bastard on the field. But utilize some solid rushes, some solid passes, and just touch down and use that special midway magic to your advantage. Now, I could give you a play-by-play for each game, but that'd be lame as shit and take way too much time, and that's not what this section is for anyways. If you utilize some less than legal plays, this should go by like a breeze, because you can easily end that wide receiver's career. Next up, you're against the Cleveland Steamers, and you're up against a repeat team from Blitz 2 because their star player is still Henry Cho, the wide receiver. Having divorced his wife after realizing she's been sleeping with his entire team, he's gotten way more aggressive, and if you don't take him down first, he'll wipe your entire team before you even make it to one rush. How these guys are in D3 with such a great defense, is beyond me, but it is what it is. Do your thing, and Walter Heisenberg will absolutely disrespect this team into oblivion. Now, 2 games into the season, it's time to introduce our main plot line for the game. Our hero gets a call from his agent and longtime friend, Agent. He wasn't exactly given a name, at least that I remember or that the wiki can tell me. Doesn't matter. Our boy has come bearing some great news. Due to our pretty damn solid performances, we're making a pretty big splash in league news. So we're getting some sponsorship offers, but more importantly, there's word around the league that the new commissioner isn't particularly a fan of yours. In fact, he kinda hates you and everything that you represent as an old-timer in the league. That's kind of all we get for now, but trust that we're in for an interesting ride. Especially since the commish owns the freshly rebranded LA Street Rats. Now, for any of you who aren't Blitz historians, this is an extension of Blitz 2's ending, where the old commish who owned the LA Riot, now LA Street Rats, gets sent to prison for insider trading and some other things. And now he's temporarily transferred ownership of both the team and the league to his brother. His brother, a weak-willed loser that's really just following the orders of his older brother behind bars, but you shouldn't know that yet, so let's carry on. Games 3 and 4 of the division go on, games against the returning Cincinnati Crusaders and the new Indianapolis Hot Rods. Then we get a new bit into our story. Walter Heisenberg is in the locker room when suddenly he starts coughing, and coughing pretty bad. You didn't sustain any major injuries in the past few games, because they immediately end the game if you do, so what could it possibly be? We'll get to that, but let's just say you come from a bygone era where smoking a stogie after every win was commonplace, and boy did you win. Speaking of, we're on to games 5 and 6, up against the Baltimore Bearcats from Blitz 2, and the new team, the San Francisco Bridgers. The Bridgers are of note because their players are all recently released convicts, most of which were in for dogfighting and possession of drugs. It's something kind of special about this series. The fact that it's not officially connected to the NFL means they can make fun of the NFL and current events all they want, like the dogfighting convict being a jab at Michael Vick, who was arrested for exactly that in 2007, which was only around like 3 years before this game came out. Anyways, do the same song and dance as always, and take these murderous bitches down a peg. In terms of story, the commissioner held a press conference about some change-ups here in the league due to a large push from sponsors. Some teams have switched divisions before the championship in an unprecedented move. Despite our perfect season so far, we've been left in D3 while our next opponents, the LA Street Rats, got moved into D2, in a move that seems pretty suspicious all things considered, but we'll let it slide for now. All we need to do is worry about is Game 7 being against the newly created Toronto Razorleafs, a team built on dirty plays and even dirtier players. Who would have guessed that this Canadian team was the nastiest team, given the whole Canadian politeness stereotype and all that jazz? This game is going to be tough, I won't lie. Their whole team is juiced beyond all comprehension. See, you can only juice 3 players a game, right? Well, these boys are on that shit you've never even heard of, and boy is it illegal. This game, you want to be especially careful about not getting your heads ripped off, and I mean that quite literally. These guys will take your head off if you're not careful. And their injury resistance? Through the roof. Their one weakness, however, is their slow acceleration and even slower turning. They may hit like a train, but they take enough time to turn that some well-timed dodges should help you run that game without too many casualties. It's definitely a challenge to be sure, but hey, if you bet on this game, you can easily make 4 times your bet, which is enough to do some serious upgrades for your team. Also, I guess I never mentioned it, but a core mechanic of this game is actually gambling on your team. I think that's kind of fun. You don't see that too awful much in sports games, but I think they should do it more. Anyway, the rest of D3 goes off relatively unchallenged, and if you play it right, you're cruising into Game 11, the Divisionship Championship, like it's nothing. The story here that you've missed so far is that now Walter Heisenberg's cough is starting to worsen, and the team doctor that's been with you from the start has started some preliminary tests for some sort of cancer. But outside of that, we won't know for until around 3 weeks from now. Anyhows, our championship for the division is up against the Washington Redhawks. Their star is R.J. Sampson, who is perhaps the greatest running back in the league's history, but is an aging star, and as such, he's been sent to D3. That and a very public and expensive murder trial really ruined his image, but Washington was desperate for a chance to get their former glory. Anyways, RJ is as murderous on the field as he is off the field, so like many of our games, it's him or Heisenberg, and Walter's the star of the show. Teach that bitch the takedown and do the Lord's work, and you'll be off to D2 with a serious shot of making it to D1. Now that we've gone up a division, Walter Heisenberg and the Albuquerque Dealers have a chance to draft some new players. Thankfully, drafting new people doesn't cost us any money, because we need to put as much money as we can into upgrading the boys' equipment and training, specifically focusing on breaking tackles and speed, because these D2 boys, and especially D1 boys, are gonna demolish you if you can't outrun or fight back against them. Outside of that, you're gonna learn all about the ins and outs of football, or you're gonna have a bad time. Or you can be like me and refuse to learn and brute force this shit till you win big, baby. Woo! Yeah! Walter Eisenberg is gonna murder his way to the big leagues! Oh boy, hey, wow, sorry, where am I? Oh, yeah, since the games all kind of blur together, I'm just gonna get down to brass tacks of the story. As the dealerships rise up into Division 2, the commish has some announcements to make. To start, the league is announcing a stricter enforcement of drug-related penalties, which is potentially bad news for all of us out on the field, but really it means that the commish is starting to set up measures to mess with us. On the Heisenberg health front, the team doctor tells us we've got some cancer in our left lung, nothing too aggressive yet, so we'll be able to keep it under wraps for as long as possible. Thankfully, our performance hasn't been harmed too much yet, so just take the meds that should mitigate any potential performance loss and hopefully don't show up if you get busted. But that shouldn't be a problem if you don't give them a reason to search you. Around halfway through the division, the dealers get chosen for a randomly selected drug test, which wouldn't be funny if I had chosen any other team name than the Dealers, and it results in Heisenberg getting busted for some sort of steroid that isn't even one of the available juices in the game. And as such, we're repeating a plotline from Blitz 2, with the introduction of the newly revamped Prison Ball. Now, Prison Ball 2.0 is somehow even less safe and more aggressive than it was in Blitz 2. The field is even shorter, there's even less protective gear. How they get away with this I couldn't tell you, but really this is just a little bit to expand the runtime and introduce some game modes for the era-required online multiplayer, although in this case it makes sense to be here. Just know that Prison Ball means we have to fight God and win in order to not actually go to prison, just like in Blitz 2. Now, since Walter is the quarterback, he's in extreme danger, as he's like 5 times more likely to get absolutely homicided out there. And during the last play of the game, assuming you're winning anyway, he gets hit pretty hard in the ribs, and he's definitely coughing up blood in the locker room. The doc takes a look at you, and your cancer is progressing. It's gonna be a bit harder to hide going forward. you're gonna have to really make sure to keep Walter safe, especially in the remaining games of the season. Eventually, the Dealers make it all the way to the D2 Championship against the Miami Ice, which is an incredibly ironic name that resulted from getting a location switch between seasons. Anyways, they're perhaps the most strategic you've faced yet, because they're damn good at faking plays, like real damn good. You're gonna have to really switch up your plays and keep up some variety in what you do, because these guys learn fast. So fast you swear you were playing against real people. But stay on your toes, go fast, commit some quarterback homicide amongst all your varied plays, keep the offense going strong, and wipe the floor with these boys. Yeah! God, I love football! Anyways, take the championship trophy home with you, because we're heading off to D1, baby! But tragedy strikes when the commish comes rolling into town with some new bad news for us. We're still making it up a division, which is good, but the bad news? The LA street riots have been brought up alongside you because the Vancouver Beavers have just been dissolved due to financial troubles amongst the owners, and no one willing to buy out the team. Anyways, the Street Rats record shouldn't allow for this, and nobody is complaining about this being an obvious repeat of a couple season ago's chicanery is beyond me, but the fans are apparently loving it. But that's getting a little ahead of another issue, that being the lung cancer. We're really starting to reach an impasse where we're gonna have to leave at some point to get treatment, and we can't play while undergoing treatment. And we can't just throw in the towel now, we're far too close to the Super Bowl to lose now. So let's just push through until the season ends in either excruciating agony and death, or fortune and glory while riding off into the sunset of legend. There's not too much in the story department in between games, just kind of fighting the teams until we get through to the LA Street Rats in the final championship of the season. Now, before the final game, I really hope you made some good gambles and invested as much as you possibly could into your training and gear, because the Championship Street Rats are a whole different club than when you faced them way back in Division 2. You'll have to fight against what is, by all intents and purposes, the star players of every single team all at once, every single play, with some batshit insane strategies that'll make this game way too close for comfort. The Street Rats may be good, but they're no match for our hero Walter Heisenberg, the greatest quarterback in all the league, and he's taken the championship trophy back, and oh no. During the final play of the game, Walter Heisenberg gets absolutely killed in a final tackle right to the ribs. He's able to walk it off to claim the trophy in the moment, but as he stands with the trophy in the center of the field, a thin trickle of blood begins to come out from his side. Then it begins to get a little more aggressive, and he hits the ground, trophy still in hand, laying flat on his back. As the medics rush towards him in slow motion, the camera begins to pan up, and we get a title card as the credits start to roll. During the credits, we see Walter in the hospital surrounded by surgeons trying desperately to save him. Then we cut back to him recovering, getting back on track, and then we end with him celebrating with his team as he gets inducted into the League Hall of Fame for truly being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. This is only if you played one hell of a season, truly fought hard, and won everything. Of course, you could have barely scraped by, just slightly winning each game by such slim margins it could have gone either way. And, you know, that's cool, but it'll be a lot worse for poor old Heisenberg here. If he's been injured too many times, just a couple of small 2 to 4 game out injuries, nothing too big, and you just barely scrape by into the final championship game, that final play will play out differently. Instead of the final injury just sending you to the hospital for some broken ribs and a lobectomy, you see a different scene. The trickle of blood once you've gotten the trophy, it's basically gushing out of you, and as you lay on the field, you end up dying right then and there. And as the credits roll, we get a shot of your funeral with your family in attendance. I also forgot to mention that you had a family because, oopsie, they sure weren't important to us or this game. My bad. But hey, you liked it. You were good at it. You did it for them. And you at least left them all of that sponsorship money and a championship trophy. So who really won here? The gameplay holds such a special place among football games, because when I said that you could kill players while on that gridiron, I meant it. You can straight up murder these bitches like it's nothing. That's because this series was made by the Mortal Kombat developers, and my god does it show. The first game is pretty tame, all things considered, where it just shows you an x-ray of the broken bone, organ, what have you. Then the second game happened, and it brings that MK magic into the fold with some of that more visceral internal x-ray you've come to expect from those games. It's legitimately super funny and is a large part of why I wanted to talk about this game. I mean, as a football game, I can't judge the quality. Even after having beaten it, I still don't understand it at all. I barely even know the positions. Like, I had to take notes on what positions meant, what their jobs were. And even then, most of that doesn't apply to these games because this is pure nonsense. Of course, you don't have to learn the positions and real strategies when the most valid strategy is to teach some bitches the takedown and break some spines. And of course, I mean that literally. You can break spines, bruise kidneys, literally explode wrists, twist ankles almost completely off, and destroy a man's balls entirely. That one is really something, and it's a returning injury from Blitz 2. Now, the way this game sets itself apart is how it evolves the gore. It definitely looks a lot more real than you'd expect from a 360 game, but it's still incredibly goofy like its predecessors. It took the parts of the gameplay it needed to take seriously, but it had a lot of fun with everything else, like the jabs at NFL scandals, like the From the Time and other famous NFL things, like the jab at O.J. Simpson with R.J. Sampson, or the San Francisco Bridgers and Michael Vick. This series and its lack of connections to the NFL really did wonders for making this stand out just because of what it could get away with. Compared to the contemporary Madden games at the time, and it really is something special. The fact that this game has an actual story, or well, actual story with 100 air quotes, I mean, I did kind of lie to you when I said this game had a serious story at the start of this, but it was serious by the series' metric. So did I really lie to you? Nope, not at all. Not at all. So, now knowing what you know, you're probably telling yourself, this shit sounds awesome. Why weren't there more games in this series? And honestly, I couldn't tell you why there weren't any more in the series. I think it's probably because they didn't sell all too well, and like anything good, there isn't too much content online about this game, let alone even this series, and that's tragic. Sure, there's the classic Germa streams on Blitz 2, which got turned into the wonderful highlight videos Mr. Super Bowl murders his way to the big leagues, and Mr. Super Bowl and the Half-Backed Prince. That's how I got introduced to this series, and I couldn't have asked for a better introduction. But truly, outside of those, no one really talks about this series anymore, and that's a damn shame. The series never did all that well critically. The first game, critically, was right around the 7.5 out of 10 mark, and the second was right about 6.5, 7 out of 10 mark. While I can't get any sales numbers, I imagine it didn't do well at all. Also, looking at the secondhand market for these games is definitely tells me something that the games didn't sell too well. I mean, seriously, when I was writing this, around $65 for the PS2 version of Blitz 2 and about $90 on average for the 360 version? It's absurd, man. I shudder to even wonder what the actual secondhand market for Blitz 3 is like, because I just randomly stumbled across this and thought it would be a funny game to talk about for the show. But truly, this game is so special. Like, it's one of the most unique and interesting football games ever to grace the console space, you know? Like, this thing is truly incredible, and it's a damn shame that nobody ever gives this game the time of day it deserves. And honestly, this whole franchise deserves more than it gets. Speaking of, this game deserves another sequel, and I think in an era of endless cookie-cutter Madden sequels, a Blitz the League 4 would do wonders for the modern sports gamer. I mean, think about it, right? A football game with a bunch of swearing, violence, and an online multiplayer with game modes that emphasize even more violence? It sounds like a hit, and for the more story-based gamers among that crowd, you give them a campaign that's chock full of that blitz magic. Make more jabs at the NFL, make some insane story involving the previous commissioner, the one from Blitz 2, getting out of prison, and starting up the fraudulent shit once more. You know, make up some shit about a new star assembling a dream team to win the championship, or make a story about that usual underdog shit. Who knows? There's a lot of potential there. The story doesn't quite matter here as long as the gameplay is engaging and fun. And as long as you improve on the standards from the last 3, I think the world is ready for this game now more than ever. You know, with the success of Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat 1, the sky's the limit here. Sure, you couldn't get the real NetherRealm studios to work on it, unless... but you could try. All you need is a good dev team that'll make the game work, and I really think this could be a hit. Seriously, I don't even know football, and I've played all 3 of these games. And you know what? I love these games. I think they're incredible, and I think you should play them as well, if you can get your hands on them anyways. They're truly a special thing, and even if you don't know a damn thing about football, I think there's something there for you. And there you have it. Probably the most unexpected thing I've ever talked about in one of these things. I mean, I'm truly the least knowledgeable person on football, period, and yet I love this game and series. It's truly fun and fairly easy to just pick up and play, and I didn't even mention all of the wacky bonus modes like Butterfingers mode, which makes every single player in the game have Butterfingers and be unable to catch the ball. Or a mode that has Infinite Unleashed, which means infinite energies. Or the low gravity mode that makes gaining yards absurdly hard because a simple tackle or shoulder check launches you pretty far back down the field. I'm just saying this is an incredibly funny and fun game, and I barely scratched the surface of everything this has to offer. I talk more about the online multiplayer, but I could never get into a game. Go figure, the servers are all shut down and I don't exactly have a modded 360, so I can't speak on that. But the bits of local multiplayer I did play were pretty damn fun, and I think that's truly all you need to know. I mean, what other football game has an incredibly detailed 360 PS3 era character creator and then lets them die from lung cancer after winning the Super Bowl? Exactly. There isn't any other game like it, and that's a damn shame. All of that said, this game is a solid 8 out of 10 experience. I think this one is a lot better all around than the other 2 games in the series, and is definitely worth seeking out if you can. It's pretty hard to find, all things considered, but I believe you can find it. I believe in you. Anyhow, thank you for reading about this incredibly obscure football game you've probably never heard of. It really, truly means a lot. Thanks again, and good night.